First off, I want to preface this by saying that this is not a video where I'm going to present all of the facts and all of the evidence and then we decide whether ImAllexx is guilty at the end. I felt like the 80 pages of evidence that were provided by the victim were compelling enough, and I'm more interested in taking a discussion on what can we learn from this, where can we go from here, what are the patterns of behavior that we might have possibly been able to pick up on to have identified this person sooner. Because I think with ImAllexx, especially as somebody who used to be a fan of his, like I used to be a big fan of his. I have some of his merch even from like very beginning pre-Slazo era. He was a really smart guy that had a lot of potential, and it is so sad and so frustrating that he has allowed to get as big as he is and be as harmful as he clearly is. And I feel so bad for Alice. And I want to make sure that the takeaway from this is not that Alice did something wrong, because I think no matter how glaring the red flags are, when you are in a situation like this, you really can't see things for what they are because you've often been isolated away from your support structure, from your perspective. You have been led to believe that these circumstances are your fault, and that if you try to escape these circumstances, that other people are going to reject you and are not going to help you. All of these manipulation tactics that they use to make you feel like you are powerless. If you have been in a relationship like this before, you know that. That said, we are in an attention economy, and me personally, I have been paying a lot more attention on who I spend my attention on. One of the reasons that I started watching ImAllexx in the beginning is because I, as a 40-year-old lady, I want to know what younger people are feeling, are thinking. And when I started watching him, it was honestly a very similar feeling to when I started watching D'Angelo Wallace, who I started watching when he was doing art commentary, because I love art commentary, even though I'm not really an artist per se. He was very young, but he still had more of a bead on the pulse of what it took to be successful on the internet than most people much older than them. Specifically with ImAllexx's case, he really knew how to make like compelling merch and compelling branding. Like the internet sensation merch was stuff that people who weren't even fans of his wanted. I don't know how many years this was again. It was probably like 7 or 8. So I was still a 30-year-old lady when I started watching him, and when I purchased his like internet sensation merch at first, I just thought it was such an interesting concept, and he had really simplified and perfected the branding to make it really appealing to a large demographic of the people that he served. And I saw such intelligence in that, and I saw in a lot of his early commentary, especially when he was really trying, that he had a lot of good insights. And as much as I hate to say this, good insights in these situations come from two places, right? They come from being hurt often, or they come from being the type of person who hurts people. And I think very often, especially looking back at Alex's earlier work and some of the things that happened with Slazo and everything, and I will explain that in a little bit more detail in a second, I promise, it makes me significantly less surprised that he is very likely somebody who harms his partner in relationships, who manipulates his partner in relationships, who gaslights his partner in relationships, who tells them they are worthless, who chews away at their weight and their value so that he can have total control over their life and the people that they associate with and things of that nature, such that he can get away with acting in an absolutely egregious manner. And even though I said that I'm going to proceed as though the allegations are true because I find that the evidence is very significant, I also need to say these are still allegations from a legal perspective. We are just proceeding as though they are true because I feel that the evidence is significant, and me personally, I believe them to be true. But I am not a court of law. One of the things that's often a big joke about cops is the fact that if you are too smart, they often will not let you be a cop. A lot of precincts, they have like an intelligence type test that you're supposed to take. And one of the things that they're actually trying to figure out is, are you going to realize that the system is kind of sucky and the system is kind of rigged and the system can be made to benefit you if you do things right? Because smart cops can very easily become disillusioned cops and bad cops. And I think that that is true amongst internet commentators as well, who often kind of act as a policing of the internet space, right? Because often these things that these influencers are doing are things that are so terribly difficult to prove in a court of law, are things that victims are often not believed, are things that it's very hard to like, that it's very expensive to go against them in a court of law, and the people that they are harming are often very much less rich than the people that are doing the harm. harm. And so you kind of have this interesting parallel where commentary, drama, channels are the policing of that space, because otherwise it's very hard for fans who may just click on their TV, watch the YouTube videos that come up and never look at comments or anything like that. Those individuals may take a long time to realize that their problematic fave is so problematic. And I think because of that, having that content in that visual medium in the same space, in spaces where it's very likely to get picked up by the algorithm and be shown after one of that creator's videos, are so important for ensuring that people that are causing harm, like Alex clearly seems to have allegedly a repeated pattern of behavior of causing harm, that is the way that we make sure that that pattern stops. And it is very interesting to me that like the more powerful and the more like kind of like corrupt and the more allegations a creator has against them, especially a large creator, the more that they will like, oh, channels are the worst, drama channels are the worst, they're these scum. And yes, there are absolutely creators and there is absolutely content that is just scum, that is just intending to make wealth off of other people's failings. But realistically, there is a significant volume of content that is being made by people who are like, look, I have really good pattern recognition skills and I can recognize this pattern. Because I recognized the ImAllexx pattern a while ago. I stopped watching his videos. Well, I stopped watching his videos a couple times. I watched him originally until Slazo. Slazo was another commentator whose girlfriend or something like that had made allegations against him. And when the allegations were invested more significantly, it really seemed like Alex had been manipulating this girl and pushing her to come forward, and it seems like maybe the allegations were not as truthful as they initially seemed to be. And it really ruined Slazo's life in a lot of ways, and Slazo has made a lot of content about it ruining his life, and a lot of other commentators made content about ImAllexx. And at that time, I had stopped watching him, but I also watched a lot of other British YouTubers. I watched Dan and Phil, I watched James Marriott, I watched Willany. I really watch anybody who I think has a bead on the pulse of what it takes to be successful on YouTube, because I think that's really the best way to know where YouTube is going and to predict where YouTube is going and things like that. And that group very much did. When they started the E-Boys during 2020 and like really maximized the time that they had just at their apartments alone or with each other, they really managed to also clean up Alex's name, because a lot of those other creators were more well reputable, they were more well established, and there were a lot of fans of the E-Boys who had hesitations about Alex ever since Slazo. That said, I also am a person that in order for me to be sane, I have to believe that people are capable of doing better and being better, and that people are going to learn from their mistakes and try to avoid doing them again, right? So when I started watching the E-Boys, it really did seem like he had learned and he was trying to be a little bit more cautious in how he was proceeding. And it really did seem like he had grown as a human being. Like, I believe that the stuff with Slazo happened when Alex was either in his late teens or early 20s. And I, as an older person, I forgive a lot of things that people do pre-25, because your brain is just, it is so vastly different, and especially because so many people are coming out of very specific family structures where they have very specific ideals of what is normal, and the first people that they meet after that they really glom onto are other people that have experienced that kind of normal. So like if you come out of like a kind of toxic or a kind of unhealed or dysfunctional family, right, you are going to go into relationships that are toxic and unhealed and dysfunctional. And many people realize by their mid-20s, early 30s, maybe late 30s, that the relationships that they were earlier taking part in were maybe not as healthy as they were hoping they were, you know? A lot of people do realize that these relationships are harmful. Now, I also have something that's called my 40 rules. My 40 rules are things that I wrote up on around my 40th birthday that were just things that I learned through life from being hurt that I didn't want to make the same mistakes again. And one of the things that is on my list of 40 things is just powerful people are attracted to positions that make them look either benevolent or professorial or critical, or it makes them look above or better than the situation that they are commentating on, because it gives them this faux aura of like being somebody who is insightful, who has opinions that should be taken seriously, who is important, whether or not that is valid or not. But when you start doing good things, it becomes harder for people to look at the bad deeds that you do, because very many people have a very Calvinistic belief that there are good people that do mostly good things, almost exclusively good things, except when they're really pressed, and there are bad people that do bad things. But the truth of the matter is most people start out as good people. They are just traumatized and broke and pushed to the brink, and they, in their minds, with the solutions that they have had presented to them, with the knowledge that they have of the world, solve those problems in the way that best sees fit. And very often those solutions are not congruent with what is legal. It does not surprise me that we have so many people come into the commentator space and use that as like a faux aura of authority when they're not necessarily the best person deep down inside. And I want the main takeaway for people to be not that, oh my God, everybody is bad, all of these YouTubers are bad. I do think that it is worth considering the fact that people who rise to the top and who rise to the top quickly often do so by treading upon the backs of others. There are very few ways to succeed quickly without harming others, throwing others under the bus, hurting others in some way. So I do think it is appropriate with those people who are growing extra fast to maybe use a little bit of extra scrutiny and see, like, are these people that have good intentions? Are these people that have skills and knowledge and insight that they are bringing to the space because they don't want to see other people hurt the way they are? Because that's my primary takeaway in the commentator space. Like, it is very hard for me to do commentary because it's a little traumatizing on a lot of realms. I'm not going to lie, especially when I have to collect information and read over that information multiple times so I can censor it enough for YouTube. It's just like re-traumatizing myself over and over and over again. But that said, I did not go through 20 years of terrible, horrible, no good, very bad relationship, both in friendships and with family and in like romantic relationship, just to keep that knowledge to myself and not share it with others. And with opportunities like this, I think it's a very good opportunity for me to share this with others, because there were multiple signs along the course of the path that Alex maybe wasn't the content creator to put all of their chicken's eggs in, you know? Don't put all of your chicken's eggs in the ImAllexx basket. They will probably get dropped, you know? But also that weirdness that happened with iNabber and the E-Boys, because it seemed like iNabber was the one who was initially really pushing to have the E-Boys created and be a thing, and to really make the most out of this friend group that they had kind of come up with. And it very much felt like Alex took that concept from Frasier, and iNabber is Frasier. It really seems like Alex took that concept from Frasier and was like, oh, you're not really ready yet to be where we're at. And at the time, I gave him a little bit of a pass, I'm not gonna lie, because I do think that one of the worst things that can happen to you as a content creator, especially as a newer content creator when you've got a lot of hopes and dreams and things like that, is to have a video or a piece of content go super mega viral and to be exposed to way too many people's opinions of you at the same time. I had a video go like 40,000 views, and at first I was like, oh, this is an opportunity for my channel, and then I realized that literally everything I posted was getting like scrutinized a lot, to a different degree. Even though I was not a creator that had a lot of experience or practice or anything like that, I'm still not a very established creator. I have taken a very slow road to get where I am to 1,700 subscribers that I have. I do think that a lot of the beef that Alex actually had with Frasier is the fact that Frasier was everything that Alex wanted to be, but like genuinely. He seems like a really genuinely good guy who genuinely cares about people. I'm gonna feel really crappy if he's revealed to be like an arsonist or something after this. Also, both Alex and Frasier were bi, and I know they weren't both publicly out at like that time, but I wager that there is a possibility that they were out to each other, or that they had sensed it from each other or things like that. Like, we kind of know. We have ways of communicating to each other quietly that we are not straight. Like, I'm wearing an equestrian carabiner. This does not say that I like guys. This says that you are what you eat, and I eat horse girls. I'm sorry, I'm just joking, because this is such an awkward situation, and it's such a painful thing to discuss, because Alice was really put through the ringer. And I really want to stress that, like, if you're coming to this video and you have not seen the things that Alice has described, it really seems like every possible way of gaslighting, manipulating, controlling her, he did. And it was like, there was so much evidence. It was on text, it was on Discord call, there were videos of him sitting in his studio at the microphone that he uses to record videos, like just yelling at her and like insulting her in horrible ways that I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, let alone somebody that I was trying to convince to come back with me. And it really seemed like he was using his mental health as an excuse to get her to come back to a harmful relationship. But like I was saying, I very much think that Alex saw in Einabber what he wished he himself was. Because I think that Einabber, he can be a little long-winded at times. Other than that, I really love him as a commentator, and I think he's got a lot of really good opinions, especially, again, compensating for his age. There are a lot of other commentators that are his age that I like perceive as being kind of immature, having like immature mindsets, but his mindsets are very mature and very like, you can tell that when he gets new evidence about situations, he does change his mind. And it really feels to me like he was very genuine, and that really threatened Alex, because nothing threatens to out a forgery the way a real deal does. If I show you this necklace on its own, you may not recognize that it's not legitimate Vivienne Westwood unless you're actually familiar with the brand. But if you have two of the pieces side by side, it is going to be very obvious which is the real and which is the fakery. And I think that is a big element of why Alex didn't want Einabber around. Now, I want to discuss another very delicate subject, and another way that people who are trying to control and manipulate the positions of power that they have kind of are insidious and kind of are harmful. I have not watched an ImAllexx video in a long time, but I went to his channel to see if he had made a statement to address this yet. And what I found was a video that I thought was like, oh, this was his like cushioning the blow, or him addressing the situation. But what it actually was him talking about this girl who was 17 years old, who had cancer, and she had passed away. And it seems like he had been sharing that journey of her cancer and the mindsets that she had been going through and all of that on his channel. But all of this was happening like after the period of time at which him and Alice were having these like really bad fights where he was being really cruel to her. And that makes me wonder how much he pushed this cause to the center because he was trying to hope that it would make him look good, so there wouldn't be as much fallout when Alice eventually came forward, as women very often do. I think that he was very much in this, like, I need to have my reputation as good as possible. And I don't want to discuss this girl too much because I really don't want the memory of this girl, who I'm really praying isn't like a figment of his imagination. I saw some people in the comments say that they thought she was fake. I don't want to go there, because I really don't want this girl or a girl's cancer struggle, a child's cancer struggle, to be used as like clickbait and headline bait and stuff like that to make people click. If there are grieving parents, I have to assume they're grieving parents. I don't want this to be a lie too. I don't want this child's parents to go on the internet and the first video they see on YouTube is Alex Elmsley uses child's cancer plight to buffer his reputation. Like, I do think we need to have a discussion, but I think we need to be very delicate and very tactful. Like, as a person with disabilities, I am very protective of this child who is no longer with us and who had health issues that I wouldn't wish on anybody. You know? It just seems like another concentrated effort to convince everyone that he was not a bad guy. And I hate that so much. I also think there's this element with Alex where often if you don't meet the beauty standard, if you don't have wealth, if you don't have connections, if you don't have style, all of these things, you are viewed as like a lesser person or less valuable in society for reasons that don't make any sense. And often you have people that grow up in these backgrounds feel like the way to prove that they are powerful is to hurt people using the power that they accrue the way that powerful people hurt them. And it's definitely one of those things that leads to this insidious cycle of the victim being the person that is perpetrating the harm. It's very difficult to discuss, right? Because the large majority of people who are hurt in this manner, they vow to never hurt anybody in this way, to protect anybody who is in this position. They don't want to see anybody in this position. The majority of people who are hurt when they are young do not turn around and hurt other people in this like deliberate and malicious factor. And it's so sad to see someone like Alex misinterpret power, because I really feel like this is probably what has happened here, that he has misinterpreted that as what is powerful. He has misinterpreted that as the way to keep a woman that he has feelings for with him, or a woman that he feels gives him social value with him, because he doesn't want to be alone, he can't be alone, he's having mental health issues, whatever reason it is that he doesn't want her to leave. It makes me so sad when you see people that have such great potential, and you can tell by the way that they act around others that they have so much insecurity insecurity, that they've weaponized that insecurity, that they lash out with that insecurity, that they won't let other people succeed and move up because of that insecurity, that they won't let the people that they're in a relationship with thrive and do the things that they want to do because they're afraid that they're going to lose that person that they're in a relationship with. And it really feels like that is some element of what's happening here by some of the things that he said in these messages. And honestly, the way he acted, the amount of evidence that she was able to collect, like there are full videos, like I said, of him in his studio just berating her. And like, he makes videos about this stuff all the time. He has to know that it's possible that people are going to take screenshots. He has to know that it's possible that these things are going to come up again, or think that he was untouchable, that he had so much power that nobody was going to believe her even if she did come forward. I kind of doubt that a bit based on how much he acted and how much he tried to cling on to her as she tried to leave. I think, especially at first, that he just genuinely thought that he could do whatever he wanted, and that because he was who he was and has a decent amount of money, presumably, that she would be with him and she would stay with him and she would accept that harm. I know a lot of other people are looking at this relationship and looking at this scenario like, how much did his friends know? A lot of his friends have seemed like really aghast by this. I think that when you don't want to see something, it does definitely make it harder to see it, right? And I also think that there's probably some element of he was manipulating everyone in his life, right? He was probably making, oh, this fight was, you know, she started it, like, what have you. And anytime things got outside of his little bubble or his composure slipped where other people could see it, right? He probably found some way to lie, detract, downplay, Darvo the people that he was in a discussion with in order to keep himself safe. That's all I really had to say about this. I just wanted to come and speak out about it a little bit, especially because I used to like him so much and I saw so much potential. You know what, it's very disappointing when you see potential in someone and it goes the wrong way, but it never makes me stop seeing potential in people, because there's just something about, like, when you see potential in somebody and they're like the real deal and they succeed, there's nothing like it. It's so great being a fan of somebody and like wholeheartedly feeling that compersion when they succeed. If you like this video, I may do more like it. Like I said earlier, it is very like triggering to have to collect a bunch of evidence, to have to prove a bunch of points, to have to assume all of the arguments that people are going to have against it and try and correct those arguments in the text so like they don't go crazy in the comments. And it is a lot, especially for somebody who is not necessarily the best at editing, who doesn't have a lot of video making experience as much as I would love to say that I do. So yeah, I'm hoping this is a way that I can share my knowledge, my feelings, my thoughts about these situations without having to spend 30 hours on every video.